Today I fucked up by looking at my GF's AI conversations. This one is actually nice and fresh. I only found out a little while ago and I'm mostly writing this to make me feel a little better. Won't be giving many details for anonymity. My girlfriend of around 3 years and I have a quite strong relationship, and I admit that she's done nothing but treat me well. No reasons to be suspicious of anything. We have our disagreements, as any couple does, and her usual method of approaching serious conversation often comes as long-winded text messages that take her, on average, numerous hours to write. Once, it took an entire day to hear back from her. This is an important piece of context for later. While this may not perfectly match with what I think of as the optimal method to solve problems, I was perfectly fine with her choosing that way, until now that is. I was getting ready to type out a paper on my PC when I realized that there's numerous tabs open from when my girlfriend had last borrowed it to do the same. I was closing them until I stumbled across her Snapchat, which was open to the My AI feature, and it seemed that was the only thing she used the app for in ages. She was using a cheeky bit of AI assistance on her essay, which I didn't judge her for. However, a couple thoughts came to me that made me inclined to start scrolling up to see what else she had asked the AI. Part of me wanted to genuinely figure out her weak points in writing so that I could help her on her next paper. Another part of me wanted to find something slightly embarrassing so that me and her could have a good laugh about it later, like a saucy message. All of me was pretty assured that, from my understanding, the AI message box wasn't anything of a private or serious place to put sensitive information, especially considering that Snapchat would have likely automatically deleted any messages she wouldn't want anybody else seeing. Whether this assumption or the scrolling up itself was the foo, I'm not sure, but around here is where I 100% foo and couldn't go back. Past the essay advice, I found a long message typed out and seemingly saved for later use. I recognized it as a message, or a very similar version of a message, that I was sent before as we mended our feelings after an argument. I thought that was generally a normal practice, as I had tons of info saved within the DMs of bots before, but what caught me off guard was that it wasn't her who sent the message, it was the bot. At that point, my heart sank, and I kept scrolling so that I could confirm or deny if this was what it seemed. Unfortunately, my fears were confirmed when I found a history of mainly two things. One was her just generally venting and complaining about me and my actions, which is something I can't fault her for. Personally, I think bots are too focused on giving a desired answer to have say in real-world conflict, but if it was cathartic for her, I see no problem in venting her anger. It was the other portion that made me want to hurl. All I was seeing was clear evidence that multiple of the long-winded messages I thought she had painstakingly wrote for me were actually produced by an AI. The gimmicky Snapchat AI nonetheless. She was trying to workshop the message over and over, trying to get the AI to write in a way that evoked specific emotions in me, or better captured her stance. Seeing all of this was honestly crushing, especially considering that I myself do both personal and academic writing as an important part of my life, and not only was I made into a fool who fell for a robot's words of love, but I also am just left so disappointed in both her and myself for giving genuine credence to messages she didn't even come up with. I honestly think my only option is to try and pretend it didn't happen. Now that I know it was a serious forum for her, I see that I totally shouldn't have snooped. Played with fire, got burned. But I still feel like this will take time to see past, and that I'll always be checking in the future, questioning her messages and just how long she actually spent writing them. Plus, there's bonus sadness in the fact I ended up reading a tirade that was correct about me being a shitty boyfriend. Safe to say that wasn't my best idea. Too long did not read. I checked my GF's Snapchat AI messages and found out the important texts she has been sending me were actually written by a robot. Edit. Hey y'all, I think the real foo today was making a post expecting 5 replies and getting like 50, but nonetheless, I appreciate everyone who commented, even the guy who tried to debunk the whole story. I see you, guy. No, I wanted to explain a crucial detail that I didn't elaborate on very well, and many people are getting hung up on this. To make things clear, from what I saw on the computer and my understanding of the order of events in terms of the messages, this was not a pre-written message that she then filtered and refined. It was a message that spawned almost completely from the AI. Frankly, if you think that doesn't have a deep level of invalidation to the words being produced, then we must agree to disagree. I would like everyone to imagine they are a person with a deep appreciation for visual arts. Now, say your partner comes to you with a handmade painting that depicts a vivid emotion. Beautiful, right? Now I'd like you to do that scenario again, but imagine they had instead put a string of loosely related yet individually striking words into a text box, and in a minute or so, an app produced a photo trying to depict whatever a robot thinks those exclusively human emotions are. Then, they presented that photo as their gift to you. Can it be touching? Yes. Did that partner make the photo? No. It's not the same realm of being personable. There's such a disconnect that it's hard to take it seriously, especially because as an artist, you are constantly monitoring and rejoicing over your partner's accomplishments in that same art. So I feel betrayed giving a lot of thought and appreciation towards a style that was literally a figment of a mechanical imagination and not truly indicative of her. It feels like shit when you've been taking writing programs for years and then get emotionally jebaited by a fucking microwave with a Wi-Fi connection somewhere in a dank warehouse across the globe. It makes you feel really stupid. Edit 2. Wow, I became an Edit 2 guy. I've hit a new low. I'm going to make a stance on the use of AI that I can tell will divide your opinion. Hate me for it, whatever, but to understand my point you must understand that I think many people are totally misrepresenting the use of AI. So here goes. AI does not take time nor effort. It is almost instant and can produce countless pages of information even with prompts that don't even adhere to basic grammar. Workshopping with AI is not indicative of any kind of care. The very transaction from prompt to AI output kills the human element outright. That is because AI works have almost no criteria that would make me think the prompt creator has any right to claim the words it outputs. Why? Because the words came from nowhere, with literally no thought prior. The words did not even exist in the prompter's mind before they were put onto the screen. That is crucial considering that we as humans operate by thinking of things, then doing them, making them happen. If the thinking is out of the equation, that more closely resembles an accident or coincidence. Want another fuck-ass metaphor to help illustrate my point? You order a slice of pizza. You get it and tell the cashier to take it back, and make it differently. You ask time after time, with them trying to meticulously adhere to your instructions and create the exact pizza slice you envision. It comes out perfect, you pay, and leave with the slice. Did you make that pizza? If your answer doesn't boil down to, no, then I'm afraid we simply think of this on a completely different fundamental level. All I am saying is, if you bring that slice to me and say you made it, I'm calling bullshit. Also, I appreciate all the solidarity, but remember that I'm not looking for people to demonize my GF. She's still the love of my life and frankly I don't think this is anything to break up over, not even close to be honest. Maybe a tough confrontation and conversation, but this sort of thing is way too small for me to call it quits. Snapchat AI passing the Turing test lol. So hang on, let me get this straight. She lied to you and pretended she wrote the messages, and now that you know she didn't, you think your only option is to lie and pretend you don't know? You guys are perfect for each other. Honestly, on the scale of AI horror stories, you were let off easy. At least she wasn't cheating on you with the AI, which is what I thought would happen. So I can understand your feelings, but I also want you to consider that she is still working to put her thoughts and feelings into words. Clearly she's working with the AI to find the proper things to say to you and she doesn't just send the first copy. Is this really that different than talking to a friend to work out the best way to say what needs to be said? At least with AI she's not tarnishing any person's views of you during a private disagreement. Sometimes people have feelings they struggle to put into words. Sounds like she was using the AI to help her out. It's kind of odd, but I don't think it's anything to be upset about. So, get your own pro version AI. Train it to be you, but with an agenda, wherever you want this to go. Then feed her messages into the bot and copy, paste the replies. See how far you can push it before she understands she is no longer communicating with you. Or just confront her. Change the things you do not like about yourself and be a grown-up. Talk to her. Today I fucked up by knowing how to code. So, I, F16, had to take a tech class as a graduation requirement in my school. It's important to note that I am utterly useless with anything that has to do with technology. Like I'm that one person who slams my phone against a table till it starts working again. I didn't know what airdropping was until a week ago. So obviously, I was not excited to have to take a tech-based class. I decided to take computer science, due to knowing the teacher, and knowing he's awesome. The thing is, I transferred over from a magnet school, and missed the first quarter of comp sci, so said teacher had to sit me down and teach the basics of coding. He pulls up code.org and we start with the basics, but oddly enough I'm flying through all them, no explanation or anything needed. Neither of us can figure out why I already know how to do all this, when it's well known I'm clueless with technology. It was only halfway through that it dawned on me why. I'm sure if you're on Reddit, you'll be somewhat familiar with the fanfiction website Archive of Our Own, or AO3. Now I post fanfics on AO3, and WHNE I didn't really know how to use the website, so I fooled around with it a lot to just kinda learn how the website worked. For those of you who haven't ever posted a work on AO3, it's not very simple, and you have to fool around with it. After you enter in your writing in the box, and post it, it doesn't always transfer over the way you write it, in terms of spacing, italics, and bolded or underlined words. When you go into edit, there's a bunch of weird stuff in there that's been changed, which I had realized in the middle of class was code. And by taking the initiative to learn the workings of the website by picking it apart in hyperfixation, had taught myself the basics of coding. I realized this, changed races with how mortified I was at this discovery. I blushed so hard I was just completely pink, and then my teacher, who I was very close with, insisted I tell him how I knew how to code now that I realized. And that's how I fucked up, enough that I actually had to explain what AO3 was, and why I was writing on it so often that I was actually ahead of the class in coding skills. Which included discussing what I wrote about to my teacher and the several people sitting around his desk, which lead to discussions about a bunch of odd stuff, even the Omega verse. And I don't even like the Omega verse guys. I've never written an Omega verse fanfic, nor do I read them. No shame, it's an amazing concept, but having explained that concept to a bunch of sane people is, yikes. I'm mortified, and so was our teacher. So too long did not read. I knew the basics of coding because of how often I used the fanfiction website AO3 and therefore had a mortifying conversation with my teacher and classmates on how I knew said basics and what AO3 was. I don't think I can look said teacher in the eyes. Edit I went back in and fixed the spacing and adds YK paragraphs so people would stop shitting on me. Seriously y'all, if someone had said it nicely I wouldn't be upset, but the immaturity of being rude while stating it to someone who specifically stated they such a technology and anything technical is crazy to me. Well, sounds like you're not nearly as useless with technology as you feel like you are. As a professional programmer, I can highly recommend joining our ranks, and there are a lot of us who are useless with anything that isn't coding, and many of us who are also on AO3. I'm sure if you're on Reddit, you'll be somewhat familiar with the fanfiction website Archive of Our Own, or AO3. Been Redditing since 2015 or earlier, and I've never heard of that. Meanwhile, the generation before you learned to code on Neopets to get that shop looking just right. Man, us 90s kids really were more wholesome. HTML isn't a programming language because it isn't turning complete. Not being able to provide vague descriptions of unnecessary information seems to be the downfall of so many people. Oh, I messed around on some forums years ago and learned some formatting. I know people who are great at coding but dislike meddling with actual hardware. They've found great well-paying jobs doing what they like. CS and IT are enormous fields with lots of different talents needed. If you found something you like to do, and you're good at it, even better than most people, and it's something that can provide you work later on, don't be discouraged by minor things like, I'm not good at this related field. Your case here, or, this doesn't interest my friends. They're not going to be your co-workers. They can still be your friends, or even worse, boys are better at this, unfortunately too common misconception.